Catch up with what's on the board. Yes, no? Okay. So, the only new skill that we need are learning which elements are diatomic. Okay, and we will use these in the next unit with math as well as in this unit with writing equations. Okay? How about now? We there? Danielle? No? Okay, tell me when you got it. Yep. All right. So, there are 7 diatomic elements. All right, so 7 elements never exist alone. Okay? They either form a compound or they bond to another atom of themselves. An example of that that's easy to demonstrate is chlorine. Now, can anybody give me the acid that chlorine is in? Nobody can tell me the acid that chlorine is in. Hydrochloric acid. Can you tell me the formula? HCl. So HCl. Now, here, chlorine is bonded to who? Hydrogen. Okay? So, chlorine bonds to hydrogen. All right? It's not by itself there, right? Now, if chlorine is by itself, it has to bond to something of itself, okay? Another atom of themselves. So chlorine bonds to another chlorine. So we put a 2 there. Chlorine bonds to chlorine. Now, how are you going to know how to do this? Okay? It's easy as long as you learn the 7 elements to do this. So, there's a list. You got to memorize the list. Y'all are all thinking, oh my God, there's another list.
I have to memorize the acids.
I know. All right, so does everybody have what they want?
Is there a trick to memorizing it?
Yep.
Okay, good.
So, on the periodic table, hydrogen is over here by itself, and the other 6 are in an upside down L. So you have N, O, F, Cl, Br, and I.
So if we have a periodic table, we'll be able to.
You'll always have a periodic table.
Okay.
So, when alone, that's the key here. Add a subscript of 2. So, if I go back for just a second, was Cl alone in this formula? So, did I add a 2? No. Was Cl alone here? I added a 2. See the difference? Okay. Now, some of y'all aren't picture kind of people. Maybe you like words. You like mnemonic devices. Several years ago, one of my students came up with, it's a stupid sentence, but it works. All right, Hector now owns 5 clear brown iguanas. No, a clear brown iguana does not exist. But they were working on using the initials of the elements on the periodic table. All right? I don't care how you learn those 7 elements, but you have got to figure out how to memorize those 7 elements, and you got to do it pretty darn quick. Okay? Because if you forget which elements are diatomic, they mess up your word equations quickly. Okay? Particularly tomorrow when we get into predicting products. You have to know which ones get the 2s and which ones don't, but only when they're what? Alone. If they're not alone, they don't get a 2. They have to be alone.
Hector now owns 5 clear brown.
Okay? Everybody got it? No, because Allie's just decided she wants to write the sentence.
Sorry, I was.
In La La Land. Oh, how was the game last night? I meant to ask you. I forgot when you came
It's
in.
good. We won.
Yay!
It was a boring game.
That's okay. One game is one game. Got to take our victories where we can get them some days.
Yeah, you're right.
All right, everybody have it now. All right, so here are the steps. There's only 2 because you know how to do everything. All right. So number 1, if an element decide if needs a subscript of 2. I'm going to write in parentheses only if diatomic. And we'll talk about that as we do the steps. Number 2, if a compound crisscross the oxidation numbers. So in these word equations, you are either going to have an element or a compound. Those are the only 2 things you're going to get. So if it's an element, you have to decide, does it need a subscript of 2 or not? If it's one of the 7, you're going to put a what on it?
2.
If it's not one of the 7, you're going to do what?
Crisscross.
Nope.
Wait.
I'm talking about if it's an element.
Wait.
If it's an element, you're going to ask yourself, does it need a subscript of 2? If it's not one of those 7 diatomics, what are you putting on it? Nothing. It either has a 2 or it has what?
Nothing.
Nothing. Will any element have a subscript of like a 3, a 4, a 5, a 7?
No.
No. Did you hear what you just said?
Yes.
I'm asking that because every year I do this and people come back with homework tomorrow and they have subscripts of 7s, subscripts of 5s, like they'll write.
I don't know it until I see it.
I know. But they'll write MN and put a subscript of 7 there. Can you have an element with a subscript of 7?
No.
No. This cannot happen. You could have a subscript of Cl with a 2. That's okay. If I say iron 3, can you have Fe with a 3?
Wrong.
Wrong. The only subscript you can have is a subscript with a what? 2, and it has to go with a what? A diatomic. It's the only thing that's allowed. Now, if I write a compound, you have to do what if it's a compound? You have to crisscross. Okay? Just like we always have, which is why I told you after the last test, if you were struggling on that crisscross thing, you need to come get help because that was coming right back. Okay? So let's say that we want to write antimony 5 chloride plus oxygen, and we get antimony 5 oxide plus chlorine. All right, that's our word equation. And we're going to translate that to symbols. Now, this word equation is a combination of compounds and elements. Okay, we have both. What is antimony 5 chloride? Is it a compound or is it an element? It's a compound. So if this is a compound, what are we going to do to write antimony 5 chloride?
Crisscross.
We got a crisscross. Okay? So what's the symbol for antimony? 5. What's the symbol? SB. All right, what's its oxidation now, Michaela? 5. Okay? So we knew its oxidation number was a 5 because the Roman number is a 5.
Oh, okay.
Okay? We can look it up, and you're going to have multiples listed there. So you know it's a 5 because what I write right behind the antimony? A 5. All right, now chlorine symbol is what? And what's its oxidation number? It's -1. How do we know it was -1, Elijah? It says so on the sheet, but it has -1, +1, +3, +5, and +7. It's the second element. That's how come you know it was negative. Now, what do we do with that +5 and -1? Crisscross it. So the 5 comes down, the 1 comes down. All right, plus oxygen. Oxygen's by itself, which means it's an element, right?
Yes.
What do you ask yourself if it's an element?
Does it need a subscript of 2?
Does it need a subscript of 2?
Yes.
Is it one of those 7 when it's alone?
Yes.
If you answered yes, it's one of those 7, then you put a 2 right there. If it hadn't been on that list of 7, what would you have done?
Left it alone.
Left it alone. And you'd have drawn the arrow. Okay? Now, antimony 5 oxide. Antimony is SB. Its oxidation number is still a 5. Oxide. What's oxygen's oxidation number?
-2.
-2. Again, we just need the 2. We're not using the positives or negatives. 2 comes down, 5 comes down. Plus chlorine. Chlorine is by itself. It's an element. We don't need oxidation numbers for elements. We just need to know, are they on the list of 7?
Yeah.
Then it gets a what?
A 2.
We write 2. All right, I'm going to rewrite this disaster because we're not putting all this work in it.
Okay, now
All right. And everybody passed with the exception of one paper, so we can balance clearly with the exception of one who needs some tutoring. So looking at that equation, what element should we start with?
I thought we weren't supposed to have a subscript of anything other than like 2. It's an element.
On the elements that are by themselves, the only subscript it can have is a 2. Now, in compounds, you can have any subscript you need. But on elements by themselves, you should only have a 2. So on your elements, do we have anything other than 2?
No.
No, that's correct. All right, so, Trevor, you said CL? Okay, starting with CL, we have a 5. We have a 2. Let me change colors here. So, make it a 2, make it a 5. That's a really ugly 5. All right, so from there, SB, we have 2. So we're going to put a 2 there. It makes 4. It makes how many oxygens? 10. So I need to put a
5.
Okay. Makes 10. How many SBs did I make?
I can't see. Wait, why would you put a 4? Wait.
Which means you have to change
Oh.
and start with.
Oxygen.
Starting with the CLs didn't work out too good because we got to change our SBs, which means we're going to have to go back and change our CLs. So why don't we switch up and maybe start with our O's?
Oh, we can put a 10 in CL.
So how many O's we got here? 5 and 2. So we're doing the same thing Trevor had us doing, but it'll work better with our SBs. So that made 10 and 10. How many SBs? So we'll put a 4 here, and that made how many CLs?
20.
So we'll put a what here?
10.
10. Because we had to correct our SBs.
You just come up with these?
Yes.
How do you like make ones that turn out to be like really?
You're going to learn how to do that tomorrow. Because this is a single displacement reaction. You're going to learn how to do it tomorrow. All right. Everybody got it?
No.
Take your time. You have all day. Just kidding. All right. Let's say that we have iron 3 plus sulfur, and we get iron 3 sulfide. All right. So, how do we write iron 3?
Fe3.
Okay. Is it an element or is it a compound?
An element.
All right. So, where am I putting this 3 that Michaela yelled 3? What'd you say? I heard it.
Nowhere.
Nowhere. Its oxidation numbers are 3. Are we crisscrossing it with anybody?
No.
If I flip back, is it on my list?
No.
No. So when I give you an oxidation number of 3 right here, there's no one to crisscross with. We don't do anything with it. We need it for this side, which will be important tomorrow when you need to know the oxidation number to predict with. It'll be important later in the week. We don't need it today, so we don't put it anywhere. It does not go top. It does not go bottom. It's just Fe plus sulfur. It's an element. Is it on our list of 7?
No.
No. Does it get a subscript?
No.
No, it does not. Yields. What do you know about iron 3 sulfide?
It's a compound.
So what are we going to do?
We're gonna crisscross.
Correct. So Fe has what at the top?
A 3.
Sulfide has what for an oxidation number? 2. So we're going to bring a 2 down and a 3 down. So we have Fe plus S goes to Fe 2S3. To balance it, this was a nice easy one because Fe has a what on it?
1.
Has a 1 and this has a what?
2.
So I'm going to put a what here? That S has a what?
3.
And this gets a what?
3.
Correct. Any questions? All right, moving on. Let's try one more. Let's do one that does not have any elements. Let's say that we have, let's do one that does. Let's have a polyatomic ion this time, though. Let's say that we have calcium sulfate plus, I don't know, potassium. Becomes calcium plus potassium sulfate. That's a nice, easy one. And then you should be good to go for homework. We just won't have gotten the types. But we will have at least mastered balancing today, so I guess I can be happy.
So it's okay if we're looking at our blue sheet for this?
Yes, you should be looking at your blue sheet for this.
Okay. Wait, so whenever you take it away, how are we supposed to know the oxidation number?
I'm going to teach you how to find them. All right, calcium is Ca. Its oxidation number is a what?
+2.
Okay, sulfate is a what?
Polyatomic ion.
Yep, so what's its formula?
SO4
What's its oxidation number?
-2.
All right, see how those things are 2 2s? What's going to happen to those 2 2s?
Crisscross. Well, you don't even need to.
They're going to cancel. If you crisscross them, odds are good you will leave them. They're both 2s. They're going to cancel out. Don't even bring them down, okay? Because if you bring them down and you forget to cancel, you're going to balance it wrong, okay? They have to reduce and go away, which is one reason I chose this one. Plus potassium, what's its symbol?
Okay.
Is it one of the 7? So we put nothing on it, all right? Calcium, by itself. Is it one of the 7?
No.
Gets nothing. Okay? That's what I mean by you have to check and ask yourself if it's one of the 7. It's not one of the 7, it gets nothing. All right? Potassium has a 1. Sulfate is SO4. It has a 2. So this time, the 2's coming down. All right? So, is it balanced?
No.
What doesn't balance?
Hey.
What are we going to do to fix that K? We're going to put a 2 on the K. It's the only thing that doesn't balance. Everything else has a 1, so all we need is a 2. All right, I need you to find 2 things because you have all the papers you need to do your homework tonight. All right. Find the one that looked like this from yesterday.
Our homework?
Yep, find the one that looked like that from yesterday. We're doing yesterday stuff. Okay? We want the 2 from yesterday. So the one that said CSCL and the one that looks like this. Okay? But I need you to find the one that's got just the front. Got no back. And the one we balanced is CSCL. Okay?
What? One with my back.
One with no back. It says chapter 8 at the top of it. I told you not to lose it when I gave it to you yesterday. The one that says chapter 8, we're doing 10 to 13. And the one that has the back from last night, we're doing 1, 2, 3. We're doing 1, 2, and 3 on the CSCL one. And we're doing 10 to 13 on this one.
Okay, I didn't know that.
It says chapter 8. The one that says balancing worksheet, not the one that says 2. The one that just says balancing worksheet.
This one says it.
1, 2, 3 on the back. That's that. 1, 2, 3. And this one, 10 to 13.
When is that? When did we do
Yesterday,
that?
we did it in class.
In class?
Yes.
Okay, you should have told me that one.
Oh, in class.
This one?
Yes.
Which one did we do?
The ones we haven't done.
Okay. All you had to say.
If you still have a calculator, put it up, please. All right, 10, 11, 12, 13. You need one.
Did you get everything for English? Yeah.
All right, so everybody has their papers. Let me write this down so I can put it on the website. All right, so 10 through 13. Chapter 8 worksheet. And numbers 1 through 3 on the CSCL worksheet. And I will be here Wednesday and Thursday after school. Today I have an appointment.